Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Fridays with Keenan's Cutting Edge, where we discuss all things edge. My name is Jenna Labor, and I will be your host as we explore the dynamic world of Don Keenan's trial philosophy, The Cutting Edge. Those of you joining us live this afternoon are receiving early bird access to this episode, so you have the opportunity to ask questions and interact with our speaker. If you have a question, please type it in the comment section below, and we'll be sure to address it. If you happen to be unable to join us live, episodes are released each week following the live broadcast. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the alerts icon to make sure you don't miss an episode. Today, we have Gregg Luther with us for our New Revolution series. Brent Crumpton, who was supposed to join him, was called into trial, so Gregg will be handling this topic on his own. Gregg is a mainstay in the Keenan Trial Institute and Keenan Law Firm family. He teaches black letter law and is the managing partner of the Medical Malpractice section of the Keenan Law Firm and also heads up the referring attorney program over there. We will put a link to his website as well as contact information in the description below so that you can reach out to him directly with any questions after this episode. The Cutting Edge is an ever-changing trial philosophy based on meeting our jurors where they are. So Gregg, tell us what is new and exciting in the edge world of medical malpractice.
Well, hi, Jenna. Thanks for inviting me to speak today. What is new and exciting? Everything. The main driver in a malpractice case is that we want to be safe as patients. And the landscape started to change in medical malpractice with the 1999, I know that sounds like a long time ago, not new and exciting, right? 1999 publication by the Institute of Health of To Err is Human. And that was the first time where the medical community started admitting what us as patients had suspected for a long period of time, and that was that patients are preventably hurt and killed by medical errors from hospitals, doctors, you name it. So there's a that's the point in time that you can put the pin in the timeline. And at that time, they admitted to killing about 44,000 patients a year preventably by medical mistakes. So it was a huge, admission by the medical community of something we already thought. Now, how did that change things? And it changed it for the better because after that point, there was an undertaking by the medical community to eliminate those preventable deaths and preventable patient harms. That's when we saw things start to change. The era of patient safety slowly began to be introduced into medicine. So it went from the point of treating patients, as if you were cattle that they were working through a squeeze chute. It went from that to actually treating patients as fellow human beings. And this brought in a whole bunch of research into why are we as a medical community hurting and killing patients preventably. And so they started to find out, guess what, the causes. And as they started to discover what the causes were, it was an eye-opening time for those of us who did medical malpractice work. It wasn't caring nurses and doctors who had gone to medical school for years and years and years, who had a healing, helping heart. The point of the root cause of why these patients were getting hurt and killed preventably had more to do with hospital and healthcare systems and failures in the system. Much like an airline pilot, it's not the airline pilot that crashes the plane. It's something that wasn't done either by the airline pilot or the mechanics or whoever, something that wasn't fixed on the plane, or just overlooking a simple thing. So the correction for these was to begin using checklists, just like the airline pilot. So before they would do surgery, they would do a checklist. There's a great book out called Checklist Manifesto. Some people may have read that, written by a doctor. And it talks about how checklists prevent many of these preventable mistakes that hurt and kill patients. So after that research and the awareness became public, we saw patient safety organizations like the Joint Commission, who had been around already, but now they had extra teeth. They had Medicare behind them. They had the US government behind them to make it safe to be a patient, to make it safe to be in a hospital, to make it safe to go in for surgery. Look, we all know, if you go in for surgery, you got something wrong with you, it could, whatever it is that led you there could hurt you. And we're okay with that. What we're not okay with is going in for surgery to cut out our gallbladder and coming out with, a ripped open intestine or things like that, damage somewhere else. We can't move our arm now, we can't see, or we die on the operating table. We're not okay with that. And so it was those things that the healthcare industry realized they could do away with simply. I mean, the surprising thing about all this is that these weren't one-off cases. These weren't just one time when something went wrong. These same things, people having the same, healthcare, they call them complications. But real people, we call them side effects. The real side effects of surgery, the same stuff was happening over and over again. And it wasn't always to the same doctor or the same set of nurses or in the same hospital. It might happen at this hospital, then that hospital, and then to this doctor and that doctor. And so the whole system of delivering healthcare was reviewed in depth to see what's going on here. Why are we having these problems? And so the first thing to come out of that was checklist. The next thing to come out was uniform hospital standards. And the Joint Commission, has the hospital accreditation standards that every hospital that gets accredited by the Joint Commission, which is a patient safety organization, there are several, but they're the patient safety organization that comes up with these uniform standards that get tested and they get tried over time and they get corrected and improved until they now have a set of standards that governs every hospital. And it's to make it safe, just not for patients. I mean, come on, the doctors and the nurses and the people that work at the hospital need to be safe too. I mean, we don't want the people who take our x-rays to all of a sudden die from too much radiation or get hurt, that way. So it's to keep everybody in the hospital safe, the people that work there, the visitors and the patients. So it's a great thing for society as a whole. Then the Joint Commission began to work on, and it was fragmented at first, but they've put together now a set of entire policies for hospitals. So that hospitals, and again, they did the same thing that they did with standards. They put out policies and they wrote policies. They had experts consult on policies. They put them into action in different hospitals, tested them, like crash testing cars. What broke, what didn't work. Let's fix that. Let's make it better. And they kept testing and trying it until they, came up with a pretty good uniform policy that was clear, easy to follow, and it could be repeated over and over again. And send this policy to another hospital, they implement it, they train on it, they get people to follow it, and it works. The number of patients that got killed or hurt preventably went down. So, the uniformity was a great thing that was ushered in this post to err is human era. The next best thing that came along, a uniform patient's bill of rights. And in there, is the right to be free from neglectful care, which, we have that anyway, but it now says every hospital you go into, this Joint Commission accredited, and Medicare too. Medicare imposes a patient's bill of rights. And in that bill of rights says you have the right to be free from neglectful care. Well, if that's a right, they can't take it from you. That's pretty much the hospital guaranteeing that they're not going to be negligent, and the people in the hospital aren't going to be, that they assign to you, are not going to be negligent. The next big thing, and I'm going to tie this all into the law here in a little bit in medical malpractice, but come on, it's great just to know that it's safer in hospitals, right? The next big thing that came about, and it didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't done with uniformity, and it took some, trial and error to build a better mousetrap, so to speak. But the next thing that came along through these, Medicaid, the National Patient Safety Foundation, the Institute of Health, the Joint Commission, was the root cause analysis. So when a patient was killed or hurt, preventably or not, you look into it to find out, you investigate. You do what's the NTSB do when there's a big train wreck? What does the FAA do when there's a big plane crash, right? They show up, they try to find out why it happened. Why do they try to find out why it happened? So it can be prevented. Let's find the things that caused this and fix those and make sure they're fixed on every plane, on every train, in every training, let's make sure those things are done so that people don't die or get hurt real bad preventably. That's the least we can do as humans for each other. And so why not healthcare? Why not? If it's, there's more patients than there are train riders, there's more patients than there are plane riders. So why not, put the same thing into work in the healthcare system? So they did. And not a big success at first, not really well received by the healthcare community. They don't want to look into these things. Now, they're all over, doing a morbidity and mortality conference on, attacking a doctor that they maybe don't like or someone they want to get off staff. They're all over that, but they hate looking at their own, mistakes and where their own system is failing. So that was the first thing that was met with some opposition. The next problem they had was that nobody really dug deep to find out the reasons why. It was just kind of nurses work harder next time, or, make sure you know the policy. It wasn't taking a true introspective look and saying, we need to train these nurses better. I mean, you think about it. These people that go into nursing, most of them, they have a healing heart. The last thing they want to do is to have a patient die at the hands of their mistake. So, really training them, giving them the right tools, giving them the time they need to do their job, and giving them the support if they aren't doing something right, somebody's monitoring that so that they can go back and correct those things. Because in the end, that's probably what they want to do. They want patients to get better and get well and go home. And they will love, getting the thank you cards and all of that stuff. They don't want to go home at night and have a patient's death on their hands. They don't want that. So anyway, the delivery of healthcare and the way these preventable patient deaths and injuries happened was really exposed by all this. And the root cause analysis is the tool that helps find the reasons why the system failed. In healthcare, they are supposed to use it every day, just like NTSB with a train crash, just like the FAA with a plane crash. Let's prevent this from happening again. They found, go ahead.
We have a question.
What do you got, Jenna?
And
Okay.
is now a good time for you to take the question?
Why not?
All right. So this is from Roger Sundling. He said he recently read Slow Think, Fast Think. And I Googled it. I'm wondering if it might be thinking fast and slow, which I believe several of the EDGE instructors have recommended. But the author emphasizes what you see is what there is. How does that integrate into the EDGE?
What you see is what there is?
Correct.
Well, I don't know. I want it, Roger, appreciate the question. One thing I want to do is, I'm not a real, let me put it to you this way. This EDGE system gets tested as is. The Don Keenan has tried more cases than anyone I know. I've taken the EDGE out and tried a bunch of cases, taken depositions, settled cases. It works. It's all self-inclusive. Getting too much, and Roger, I've read, how doctors think and all that stuff too. As far as the EDGE, there's no external reading you need to do. It's a system that's all self-enclosed and everything is there. Borrowing from other places is not necessarily the way to do it. With that said, how that plays into healthcare probably is more. Roger's a doctor, by the way, Jenna. He's a medical doctor. So
oh.
yeah, and a lawyer.
Oh, double edged.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Roger, for that
Yeah.
question. Let's hear
He's
more,
probably
Greg.
talking more about how it plays into how, doctors think and how nurses think. And it's the same thing as a combat soldier. If they've got the time to do what they need to do, everybody's safe. If they have to be rushed and, their decision making, if they don't have a good plan and they don't have a good set of policies and everybody doesn't follow protocol, well, then things don't end up so well. And in healthcare, it's the same way. If a nurse gets too many patients, if a doctor has too many surgeries, it's probably not going to go well. You might get by, I liken it to driving home drunk on the wrong side of the road. You might be able to get by with it, but eventually somebody's going to get hurt real bad, and it's totally preventable. Don't drive drunk and drive on the right side of the road. So there's all kinds of, and there is, you could attack the healthcare system, the way they train, the way they keep residents up all night, the way, you don't ever see the same doctor twice, or you see somebody who's not the doctor. Today you're going to get to see the PA. Today you're going to get to see the nurse practitioner. Today you're going to get to see the resident. Today you're going to get to see your real doctor's partner. Today you're going to get to see the new PA that we hired. Today you're going to get to see the new doctor that we've got on staff. And surprise, surprise, we're going to transfer you to that doctor because your doctor is, has more new whatever patients. So it's that sort of thing with healthcare is a problem. But that doesn't necessarily, I'm focusing on today, what's been the revolution for medical malpractice lawyers, because let's face it, in the end, these people's lives are either ended and their loved ones are coming to our office, or their lives are ruined and they're coming to our office for some type of justice. And we've got to be able to do that. And, Dawn has always said, we have to know the medicine better than the defendants do, and better than the defense experts and defense lawyers do. But we use plain English in the courtroom, and we, I think it was I think it was Albert Einstein said, genius is making the complex simple. I think that's who it was. And I say that all the time about Don Keenan, because, listen, don't let the guy fool you. He'd try to act like just, good old boy from the South. Let me tell you a story about Don Keenan. He snuck into an American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists continuing medical education class. And after the class on fetal heart monitoring, he took the same test that all the other doctors that were there took. Everybody else was a doctor there. He took the same test they took. Guess who was high score? Guess. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Don Keenan, high score out of all the doctors. And then the doctor teaching the class, who had let him sneak in, introduced him to all the real MDs that he had beat at the end of the CME. So yeah, you got to know the medicine, but you don't try a case on the medicine. You make it simple.
We've got another question actually that dovetails perfectly into what you're just talking about.
Okay.
Al Altopietti asks, hey, Greg, good seeing you again. Have you hired any root cause analysis experts in your cases? Are there such experts who will testify? He says that he's considering using one.
Yes, absolutely. So in every case, you've got to have somebody skilled in doing a root cause analysis do one in your case. Somebody who's been on a team, and probably the person, they're usually like a risk manager. Some of them are MDs. Most of them aren't. Most of them are advanced degree nurses. And do a root cause analysis and get to the real reasons why the bad thing happened. Because Al, it's there's more than one reason, right? The other thing, the thing I was getting to with the root cause analysis, is what they found is that it's never just one screw up. It's never just, and it's usually not a person. It's because that person wasn't given enough time, or that person wasn't trained, it wasn't, properly supervised, or, something, or sometimes it's just a mistake. Most times it's some type of management issue where they aren't, they bring in a nurse, and the nurse is proctored or follows around another nurse for, I don't know, 4 weeks, 4 days, whatever. And they throw that nurse to the wolves, and they want to start, making money off of them and giving them a load full of patients. So the training gets shortcut. And then what's the annual review? You sit at a computer for a day and you check boxes on some test. But that's one thing. The real thing, though, is when you're at the bedside, when that nurse is at the bedside, do they perform correctly? Do they know the policy? Do they know how to follow the policy? Do they know the consequences of, what not following the policy can lead to? Those sorts of things. So absolutely. And, you have that person testify at trial about, what it basically gets down to is, did the hospital have the right policies? Did they train their staff on the policy? Did they supervise their staff to make sure the policies were being followed? And to the point of policies, most states have in their uniform administrative code, they have a requirement that hospital policies be in writing and be in sync with the current standards for medical care. Okay. And then, what do you run into in every case that you do? You have a malpractice case, and well, our policies at our hospital are just lofty goals. I mean, there's no way we could achieve those things, right? Well, no, not true. Not true. So saith your state legislature, who says that, your policies have to be written consistent with the standards of medical care. So, if the policy was violated, then you got to look for the reasons why, because that policy is written consistent with the standards of care according to law. And also in the Joint Commission hospital standards, it's the same thing. Hospital policies, have to be consistent with the standards of medical care. So then you get down to, why was the policy violated? Was it lack of training? I mean, sometimes it is a bad apple, right? Sometimes it is a bad apple. It just wouldn't follow the policy, but that's rare. That's really rare. It's usually because that person, that caregiver, didn't know the right thing to do at the right time when it really mattered, which is the other big defense that hospitals have always used. Those of you who've done malpractice have heard this a million times. Well, we can't be there right at the point of care to supervise every nurse in our hospital. No, but you can make sure that you follow the Joint Commission standards, which say that you have to audit them and make sure they're doing things right. So where's the record of that? Where's your record of auditing this nurse. It's just your one annual time when they sit down at a computer and click on boxes or circles for the right answer. You know, if you're not measuring them, if you're not supervising them when they're out on the floor, you're not following the hospital standards. And of course, you're going to get the pushback that those are not standards of care, but they're standards. So in any event, absolutely get a root cause analysis expert. There's going to be, by the way, Jenna, can I plug the MedMal 2022?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So those of you who are watching today, so far 2 we know of, right? Those of you who are watching today, thanks for coming. Number 2, we're going to be back live, y'all, in February 4 and 5 of 2022 in Atlanta for MedMal 2022. And so, you know, there's going to be new updates. Those of you who have been coming for the past several years know we've been doing the teaching on root cause analysis. We've been out trying cases with it, putting it to use in the courtroom. And, you know, we've got results, we've got updates, we've got fixes and some things that went wrong that we all, you know, we're going to teach there. So I hope everybody can make it. But just by way of proof of the, you know, Keenan Edge system, I was lucky enough to be invited to be co-counsel on a case with great lawyer Marjorie Chalfant. A lot of you know her. She's a nurse lawyer, former ICU med surg nurse, and also while she was doing that, went to law school. She and I tried a case in Charlotte County, Florida, which I'm told is where plaintiff med-mal cases go to die. 63-year-old man, wrongful death in a hospital, waiting for surgery that he never got. $7.5 million verdict down there using these same methods that we're going to be teaching at the seminar and have taught for years. So it works. It's everything you need. So I hope you guys can make it. Hope you can. How am I doing on time wise, Jenna?
You got 27 minutes.
27 minutes?
Yeah, but we can
all?
fill it. We can chat. We can get more questions.
No, I got a whole page here. I'm just on number 5.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I'm so glad. Keep going.
So one more area that this, you know, to err is here. I'm glad Roger's here because he probably read that when it came out like I did. So, you know, one more thing that this post to err is human ushered in for us, mainly via Medicare and the Joint Commission, is the informed consent. You know, the informed consent law varies from state to state, but let's see, what was, you know, 20, 30 years ago, now I'm dating myself too much now, but you know, informed consent was the doctor tells you what they want you to hear before they take you to surgery, and then, you know, too bad for you if something bad happens. I didn't, you know, didn't tell them of that risk or whatever. Well, it's not that way anymore. You know, the patient has more, the medical field, the American Medical Association, everybody, even ACOG, you know, ACOG, who is the worst of the worst at you know, respecting patients' rights, even ACOG is now talking about the patient's right to make their own decision about their own body. Doctors don't have a right to tell a patient what they're going to do. A doctor has to give the patient all the options. The medical field and the legal field talks about, risks, alternatives, benefits, and blah, blah, blah. Bubba, patients say, I want to know my options. What are my options? And then what does Bubba do? They get out their smartphone and they get a virtual second opinion or a virtual third opinion. That's how things work nowadays. Because patients want to know the options. They also want to know, what are the real risks of what you're trying to do to me, doctor? Is this the thing you do because you just make money at it and you know that health insurance pays for it, and so you do as many of them as you can in a year? Or is this the thing that I really need, and how much benefit am I going to get out of it, right? Because if you're doing this, it lines your pocket and I really don't get much benefit out of it, then no, thank you. I don't want it. I don't want to take any risks if it's not going to have a big upside for me. I want to take this medicine. I don't want to have this surgery unless it's got a pretty much certain big upside to it. And, that's something that is in the DNA of us as human beings now more than ever, right? What are you hearing? What are you hearing in the, public right now? They don't have a right to tell me I have to take that shot. I don't know what's in there. It could hurt me. It could kill me. It could, affect my children down the road. It could, all these kind of things. We don't know anything about it. Well, okay. If Bubba's that concerned about a vaccine, and I'm not taking sides, so don't be commenting or posting or calling in with that stuff. Send your hate mail to Jenna. She's the one that asked me to come on.
I'll field it.
But you have to respect that as those people, just like us. I'm vaccinated. I had the right to decide whether I wanted it or not. I really didn't want anybody to tell me to get it. It was my choice. So I hear them, I hear it, I get it. It's the same with surgery. It's the same with taking any medication. It's whatever it is. What's the upside? What's the downside? What are the options? And how what's the statistics on it? That's what people are, fearful of the vaccine about, is you only got short-term data on it. You don't know what it's going to do in 5 years, or 10 years or whatever. What if all of us who got vaccinated suddenly get cancer in 8 to 10 years? Something to think about. But everybody's got the right to make their own decision. And that's where informed consent comes in. And you want to talk about traction nowadays with informed consent. I mean, Roger, in the old days, we used to think informed consent wasn't much of a good cause of action, right? Never pled it, never tried it, some people did, but it was usually the last resort cause of action, Now it's like the number one thing. A patient's right to decide what happens to their own body is totally the patient's decision, not for a doctor to make, certainly not for the healthcare industry to make. So that's a long introduction into now what I want to talk about. but
I've been
it's
seriously
necessary.
taking notes, so I bet you the audience has been too, because this is super helpful. Just, I mean, it's always good to know the background, right? Where does this stuff come from? It doesn't just come out of thin air. It comes from a
Right,
foundation, right?
right. You got to know. I mean, when you're taking the deposition of a hospital CEO or risk manager or the, defendant surgeon or whoever, you got to know where it came from. And by the way, they always say joint commission is a voluntary thing. Well, my rear end is voluntary. It's only voluntary if they don't want to get paid by the health insurance companies and Medicare. Okay. If they want to be altruistic and, oh, look at that star or that cross on the top of our hospital, we're just here because we're right. Come on. If that's true, then yeah, they don't want to get paid. They don't have to be accredited by anybody, but they've either got to be, Medicare accredited, they got to pass Medicare stringent patient safety requirements, or they can have what they call deemed status. They get deemed status if they're accredited by the Joint Commission, which the Joint Commission says, or which Medicare says, okay, and all the major health insurance companies say, okay, that's pretty much as good, sometimes better than being Medicare accredited, so you can bill us and we'll pay you. If that certification gets jerked for any reason, they can no longer bill health insurance or Medicare. So it's a big deal. It's not voluntary at all. It's only voluntary if they don't want to get paid. So
Greg, I just have a quick question, even just for myself here, that seems to fit in. What about physician groups or clinics or people who are not hospitals? Because I'm running into that situation.
Good question. Yeah, ambulatory care clinics still have to be, if they want to bill Medicare or health insurance, still have to be accredited by someone. And Joint Commission has, they have nursing home, standards. They have ambulatory care clinic standards. They have all that stuff. It applies, and there are decisions from some states. Even you guys know, most of I live in Oklahoma, although I practice all around the nation. Oklahoma Supreme Court has a decision that says that the Joint Commission standards establish standards of care for all hospitals, even those who aren't Joint Commission accredited. Okay. But in this day and age, most every hospital is Joint Commission accredited. If they're not, they're accredited by somebody else who also has, same or similar or more stringent standards. So we can use those things, and where am I going with this? All this stuff is a win for the patient. All this stuff is to let the patient be more involved in their care and to preventable patient death and injury. So it's a win for the patient. So what does that mean? How do we use this as advocates for patients or patients' families who've been wronged or killed or hurt by the healthcare system? Well, you got to have policies at your hospital. You got to follow them. If a policy, there's you guys, Jenna said at the outset, I'm the co-dean of the Black Letter Law course. I was one of the editors of the Black Letter Law book, which is available on Amazon if you want to get a copy of that. But the Black Letter Law that is the reptile, the edge law that we own in all these states. The name is Negligence. What is it? Purpose, negligence, purpose, elements, and evidence. And it's the law of foreseeability in all 50 states. You can get the paperback version of it on Amazon now. Highly recommend it. It's a great jumping off point for your legal research when you get the anti-edge motion in limine. So, but the Black Letter Law is that tort law exists for public safety. It exists to give those wronged an avenue for recovery so that there's consequences for bad actions so that people behave in a socially responsible way. And if you want to quote somebody on that, as recently as Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings, he talked about tort law, the purpose of tort law being around public safety. So, our job, I tell people all the time, we are civil prosecutors. We are prosecuting wrongdoers for the damage they've done, and how all this post to error is human stuff comes into play as a malpractice lawyer. It's a great basis now for standards, guidelines, uniform healthcare system delivery of healthcare systems to eliminate the bad things that can happen to patients. The field of medicine knows about these bad things now because they've spent so much time over the past 3 decades talking about it, researching it, publishing papers on it, giving statistics on it. How often should somebody have a bowel injury after a gallbladder surgery? I mean, is this really something that we're just going to pass off as just one of those things that happens? Hell no. And then they write article after article. There's articles out there talking about how to prevent it, right? And then we've got the hospital standards and hospitals policies that all need to be followed. The timeout, the pre-surgery timeout, the patient has the Bill of Rights. And then most importantly, think about the informed consent. Did the doctor talk to the patient beforehand about a bowel injury? Doctor, did you tell the patient what your average is as far as how many patients that you operate have bowel injuries after removing the gallbladder? Well, what is it? They keep track of that stuff. They definitely keep track of that stuff. So there's the revolution, although, nothing's an overnight success, right? It started decades ago, but it's really given us as lawyers representing the victims of careless healthcare givers. It's given us a lot of tools to use against them. These industry guidelines are evidence of the standard of care. Whether what are the black hats and the defendant's going to say? Of course, no, the guidelines aren't the standard of care. No, you don't need to follow these things. Well, let's talk about the stats when they are followed. The studies show that when these guidelines are followed, it's 92% of the patients don't have any bad outcome, right? So you got a 92% chance that if these things are followed, there's no bad outcome. And then you got Dr. Cavalier Cowboy, who decides to go off the guidelines and do your own damn thing, and your patient dies. Who didn't see that coming? It puts it in perspective so that jurors can understand it a lot better. Look, this patient safety thing is in Bubba's DNA. It's in our DNA. It's damn scary as hell. Why do you think people don't go in to get surgery right away when something's wrong with them? Oh, maybe it'll be okay. And then they wait too long. Well, they're scared as hell that something bad's going to happen, because what's their life experience been? Grandpa went to the hospital, he died. Grandma went to the hospital, they killed her. It's real. In 1999, the healthcare industry admitted it's real. That's Bubba's imprint of going in for healthcare. So, we need to capitalize on that. Don't try these cases in the medicine. Try these cases. It's just it's like any other case where there's a guideline or there's a policy or there's the National Electric Safety Code. There's all these things that say how to do it. And then the bad guy decides they're smarter or don't need to do it. Skip a step, skip 2 steps, skip 3 steps, something bad happens. Well, the stats show that if you follow the National Electric Safety Code, nobody dies, nobody gets electrocuted. That's the whole reason it's there. That's the purpose of it. So it's no different in medicine. It's no different in medicine. If think about it. The surviving sepsis guidelines, right, Roger? Surviving sepsis guidelines. How many years have they spent on perfecting those? I mean, 20 now, 15 at least. And it's like everything. It doesn't start out as an overnight success. It takes time. But now we've got what? A protocol that consists of 7 or 8 things to do. And when done, there's a high success rate, high survival rate. There's a, virtual no chance that you're going to get limbs amputated from ischemic injuries from overuse of pressors or from, the clotting that develops as our natural defense system tries to attack the infection. So these things really work when followed. What we have to remember is we use the science from the standpoint of their own proof to show how following the guideline, following the policy, following the protocol prevents this from happening, because they keep track of it. And we should be using that information. It's now, I don't care what field of medicine you pick, there's now at least 30 years of data on that kind of information, all because of the turning point, the tipping point in medicine was to err as human. Thank you, 1999. How much time I got left?
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
How many more bullet points do you have to fit in?
Well, let me go over some places to look for this stuff.
All right. And make sure you address where we can find root cause analysis experts, because that's a burning question. I know.
Okay.
Like maybe where to look, but who could that be? Excuse me.
So the best place is the best place to find somebody, and listen, you want to find somebody who regularly does root cause analysis in the hospital, in their practice, And so the Mindy Cohen with On Point Consulting years ago, she's been teamed up since back when we call ourselves reptile lawyers. You guys remember Mindy? She came to the very first Med-Mal seminar we did and was a sponsor. So is it On Point LNC, Legal Nurse Consulting? On Point, let me make sure that's right. Anyway, Mindy has cultivated an entire list of qualified expert.
It's On Point Legal Nurse Consulting.
Yeah.
On Point is one word, but the O and the P are both capitalized. So.
Yeah, isn't the website onpointlnc.com?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So go there. That's the best place to jump off to start looking if you don't have any other resources. Because Mindy has been working with us back when I think so. Don first used root cause analysis back in like 2008. In 2017, we began preparing it for the courtroom. And now we've used it in several trials. Going to talk about all that experience and some updates and some firewalling that we need to do in our cases at MedMal 2022. But definitely tap into On Point LNC. They're a great resource, and they've been a great supporter of Reptile and Edge. Listening, how many times you get experts that don't want to listen to you, the one that's paying them. They listen to us, they help us find the qualified people, and definitely. So that's a good place to find your expert. Okay, the Joint Commission hospital accreditation standards, hospital standards come out every year. You can go to the medical school library, you can buy them online sometimes, not always. You can go to the medical school library and find the year of your case. Like if you've got a 2018 or 2019 case where the malpractice happened in 2019, go get that copy of the Joint Commission accreditation hospital standards, and you can, copy them or scan them, whatever, and you'll have those. Read them through front to back. You'll be surprised. The things you've been told for years by your own experts and the defense experts, they said, no, we don't have to do that. No, that's not so. Well, guess what? They're wrong. You'll find all kinds of stuff, and you're like, oh my God, I wish I'd have known this, 10 years ago when I had such and such case. The other places, to find, Google's a great source now to jump off and start finding stuff, but find these, if you do MedMal exclusively, or, like I do, or do most of your cases, uptodate.com, buy a subscription to it. Great resource. The other resource that's always good is, like the textbooks, Williams for, obstetrics, and Sabiston's for surgery, Harrison's for internal medicine. Those are always good. But the journals that, if your defendant doc is board certified, the journals that they receive from their college are awesome sources, and you can always find useful stuff in there that talk specifically about how dangerous is this surgery, how when and then what are the guidelines for safe surgery for that surgery? What are the things you do when you encounter a gallbladder that is an anomaly, a gallbladder that you can't tell which tube to cut? You need to run the test, just like just like Bubba said, run the test. Did you run the test? Well, if you didn't run the test and you just clipped something hoping it wasn't the wrong thing, and it turned out to be the wrong thing, shame on you. You knew better and did it anyway. You were taught about that test in medical school. You were taught the reason for that test in medical school was to make sure you didn't cut the wrong damn thing. So it's the simple stuff. It's not. I'm not saying medicine is easy, but Bubba knows it's the simple stuff is the preventable stuff. The simple, easy stuff is the preventable stuff. And what Bubba says in focus groups time and time again is, if the doctor did every step right, then it's probably just one of those things that happen. But if the doctor doesn't listen to the patient, doesn't take the time, doesn't run the test, doesn't make sure the records are right, doesn't talk to other doctors, doesn't, communicate with the patient and tell the patient what their choices are, then it's probably malpractice. So this stuff is a good tool for us to use. It's, Roger's going to remember medical textbooks used to be written. I mean, they never said anything about, standard of care or causation like they do now. Now they tell you how to do things, and they tell you how to prevent things, and they tell you the consequences of doing it the wrong way. And they tell you what the warning signs are. It's so much better now that the post to err is human. Be thankful you're practicing law in this area, because it was a hell of a lot harder to do med mal before that came out. So I will take questions, or Jenna, if you want to talk, or
Actually,
you know what I wanted to say.
What?
One of the questions we always get is, if people have a case and they want to refer it to Keenan Law Firm, how do they do that, and then what does that entail? So if you want to refer a case, if you have a case and you want to involve Keenan Law Firm in it, you need to get in touch with me, and my email is gluther, GLUTHER @KeenanLawFirm.com. And what we'll do is we take the case. It has to meet one or two criteria to do what we call a consult on it, where we help you all through the case, but we're not at trial or deposition or on the pleadings. The case has to at least have a minimum value of $5 million. If you want us to be at trial with you and in deposition with you, the case has to have a minimum value of $10 million. And you'll send us the case summary. We'll work with you to prepare it. We do a focus group, and the focus group decides whether it's a case that we take or not. We have a way that we gauge. And so anyone is welcome to do that. I will tell you, until Jenna has been a Keenan Law Firm referring lawyer, you learn so much. You learn so much more, being a referring lawyer to Don's law firm than you will just going to seminars or watching podcasts and that sort of thing, and going to the colleges. You learn a lot there, but you'll learn more as a referring lawyer. So it's a great experience. If you're interested, that's how it's done. So with that, I probably went over.
That's all right. Only a few minutes. And I'll just say, as a follow-up, if you don't, so when you submit these cases, sometimes they're not accepted. And Young G and I have submitted several, and sometimes they're not accepted. And then we got one that was. And so if some of you out there are saying, well, I already submitted and it wasn't accepted, that's okay. We kept on a couple of the ones that weren't accepted by the Keenan Law Firm. We let a couple of them go based on the insight that we received from Keenan Law Firm. And then, we did have one that worked out where we were able to work with Don. So keep submitting. I think Mindy always tells the story. She submitted dozens of cases before she was able to work with Don, and she just prides herself on her persistence there. She was committed and determined. So it's a good experience either way, because you get wonderful feedback, regardless if they end up working the case with you. So thank you so much, Gregg. I appreciate you being here today. Thank you for all of you who joined us for this week's episode of Fridays with Keenan's Cutting Edge. If you liked today's episode, please click that thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and sign up for alerts so you don't miss the next one. This podcast is about delivering what you want to hear, so don't be shy about sharing your topic ideas with us. As Papa Don always says, if you want to know more about it, chances are someone else does too. Next week, we will be hearing from Reed Womble out of California, who will be speaking about the late, great Mo Levine. Papa Don raves about Reed's take on Mo Levine, and I look forward to hearing from him along with all of you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.